Something never talked about in martial arts is the reality of what happens in a claim. And too many times I will hear in conversations with clients, clubs say, we've been operating for 20 plus years and we've never had a claim. But as a non-profit national organisation representing more than 100,000 students, we do see claims on a not infrequent basis. And it's really important that clubs start to understand, especially as times evolve, what the real transferable risk is when a claim comes in. Insurance, especially in martial arts, if you work on the mats, you'll know this. Insurance is often chucked in the top drawer. You pay the policy, you get the certificate, chuck it in the drawer, you're insured to teach. The reality, whether the insurer or organisation tell you so or not, is that all insurance will come with terms, conditions, exclusions and limitations. Now these make sense. If you were underwriting a risk of £5 million on a club, you might want to set some conditions of cover, and that's things they can do, things they can't do. So it's not inherently unfair. The issue is, with a generic insurer coming to the sector, they don't always understand the realities of how things operate in the club, especially when you look at how different a historical European martial arts club might operate to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club. So at BMBA, we have our group cover provision in place that's bespoke, worked on our UCAS accredited framework, and within that regulated chain of command, working with the insurer to distill down into human forms the way claims work. And what that means is because we effectively as an organisation are the policy holder and you are assigned to that policy with your membership and insurance fee paid, we work with you when a claim comes in. Now, this isn't a glossy, we'll work with you and support you. We will do that, clearly. This is more about the reality of what happens if things go wrong. Claims are hugely emotional. If someone is injured, that in itself can be terrifying. But then when that transfers to a legal letter, that will often stop your club solid on its tracks when it lands on your doorstep. The issue you have here is if somebody is injured or property is damaged, but let's centre on that injury issue. If somebody is injured, this isn't a case of arguing whether it did or did not happen. They were injured. And if their solicitors allege, which is what we see all the time, a multitude of different breaches of that Duty of Care Act, this isn't a case of simply dispelling one claim. You often have to resort backwards and forwards with a solicitor dealing with multiple infractions: duty of care, poor supervision, lack of PPE, lack of training, poor pairing work. Even if your student is the one to injure another student, you are responsible for that class. We've seen some horror shows and near misses, fortunately not within our own body. But the important thing here to remember is claims, even very small claims, which insurers will often pass over as being close to nil in value, can still be more than £30,000. The thing you have to really think about is, could you afford a £10,000, £20,000, £30,000 cost to make a problem go away? Because the reality is, even that back and forth with a solicitor to deny liability can still cost £5,000 or £10,000. And if you're found liable, those costs rise proportionately. Now, insurance is important. There is a real need for insurance to exist. If you were trading at a, let's say, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club and you're injured, and let's imagine you're a lorry driver or you work with your hands and you can't do your job, you can't pay your rent or your mortgage, you are materially impacted, and that could have a huge impact on your life. If that happens because of somebody genuinely getting it wrong and not doing well enough, it's fair that you should be able to claim compensation to cover your losses. The issue, of course, is that what is deemed to be fair is sometimes subjective, and we see many frivolous claims coming in where the club has done everything right, but an injury has just happened. It's combat sports, it's going to happen. So the reality you need to think about is, if you're a sole trader, which most clubs are, your liability is the same as the club. So if the club is sued for £100,000, that's you personally sued for £100,000. And we have heard firsthand from clubs who have come to BMBA for our insurances after having near misses in which they've had to start looking at things like, do we sell the house? Can I sell the car? Is this going to bankrupt the business? Even if you're a limited company or another entity that's recognised separate by law, it's enough to put you out of business. And that's what you pay insurance fees for. Yes, sometimes you might be able to find it a little bit cheaper somewhere else, but it's so important that we take responsibility for understanding what we're covered for and what an insurer is going to want to see in the event of a claim. And the best way to do this is to put yourself in those shoes now. Inside of my MBA, we have test runs you can go through, which will help you benchmark and fire test your own provisions. Are you forgetting to do that risk assessment? Are you double checking the register of who's attending classes properly? What small little caveat of time are you possibly carving off out of convenience now that could cost you a small fortune in the future? Most insurers are fair and they want to pay claims, they want to support clients, but they won't pay if you materially change the risk they've assumed or you breach the conditions. So the important thing to think about when you look at your insurance renewal or whatever provision of insurance it is, isn't how can I save a couple of quid? It's how much can I afford in that risk game to get wrong? And you should be acting as the prudent uninsured, which is the notion in insurance that you should act as if you don't have that insurance in place. That policy going in your top drawer isn't real cover. It's not real protection. That protection only kicks in when the insurer picks up that legal action on your behalf and starts footing the bill. And in those cases, that nominal amount of money you might spend every month or every year on insurance will be worth its weight in gold. This isn't a sell to say use our insurances. There are other credible insurers out there as well. It's a call to action to double check the terms and conditions and make sure you understand what happens. And when you get bored of those terms and conditions because they aren't the most interesting read, it's to really put yourself in those shoes of imagine that brown envelope on your doorstep from a solicitor and put yourself into that horrible emotional turmoil of thinking, in the event of that claim with the solicitor breathing down your neck and the emotion hitting you, how would you function? How safe would you feel that your club has everything it needs to be well protected? If you're in any doubt, take action before a claim comes in. Do the test runs, take yourself through it, talk to the team. We can't give specific advice on insurance because it's a regulated product, but we can make sure you have the things in place you need. And remember, MyBA has Ivy, our risk tool, as well as Regulation Ready, Club Colours, and a whole myriad of other tools to help you see and identify gaps in compliance and help you reach best practice.